Welcome back to the Justin Prince Show. And I am really excited for you guys to meet a really special man. You guys ever had those people you meet and you're like, yo, you're like my blood brother, man. We're like, just a kind of an instant ride or die. When I met Johnny, that was my experience. We actually met, I think originally just kind of hit each other up on Instagram. We just became friends on Instagram. And then we set up a time to, I could tell he was one of the real ones, We set up a time to chat. I think we jumped on a Zoom and we were going. And what's so interesting about this guy, you guys will see this today. You'll experience this today. This is a man that, from a business perspective, has basically played the game as at a highest level as you can get, So, helped to build his family's business in the kind of the camping RV world. Was the former president and chief business officer of Camping World. When he was helping to run that business, this is a business that was generating over $4 billion a year in revenue. He was, managing over 12,000 employees, if you can imagine. So, if you want to just kind of check off does this guy have credibility? Do you know what I'm saying? Is he the real deal from a business and an operation standpoint? This is as big of a business operator as you're probably going to meet. But that's not what stood out to me when we met. His ability to just be real and vulnerable and honest. I mean, we just connected on kind of a deeper level versus the kind of fluffy high level that sometimes happens, where everyone's trying to see who's the most successful. And we just built kind of a deep connection, as men, as family men, as husbands, as fathers, and also with so many of the challenges he's been through. The business challenges, the personal challenges, the family challenges, and so you're just in for a treat today. This will be an episode you're going to want to share with people, and you're going to pull out a lot of insights. He now keynotes all over the world. He also serves on multiple boards. He coaches high-level corporate executive teams. So he's still, in the game, adding value, but he really has this incredible ability to take challenges in life. He wrote a book called "Life is Hard, but I'll Be Okay." What a great message. Life is hard, but I'll be okay. And that's a book you're going to want to get. So, Johnny, I'm just honored to have you, man. Super fired up about it. Again, I felt just an instant connection to you. Your ability to just be real and honest and vulnerable is a real gift that you have. You have a lot of empathy. So thanks for being on. Let's dive into this thing.
Well, Justin, thank you, man. I'll tell you, when I first saw you on Instagram, you were speaking, I'd watch reel after reel, and I'm like, he nailed it. Yep, that's it. That's the way you see that. And then the next one, I'm like, okay, he's not a one-hit wonder. And then the next one. And so, literally when I see you coming up on my feed, I'm just like, all right, settle down, sit back, and let some wisdom soak in. And so I want to thank you. I mean, certainly you're very kind in that intro. My goodness. Super kind. And of course, I felt that connection with you as well. And what I love to see is, really when men have the opportunity to get together and, get there faster. And I'm not a very patient man. So, the opportunity to connect so quickly with you and the kindness and sincerity and your good heart and your incredible business savvy and, the power in which you speak, all those things, I'm drawn to, and, I just really appreciate the way that you welcomed me. You were just great about it. You just welcomed me in, and so I'm going to say thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. So let's take some time to kind of get to know you. So walk us through, Johnny Sirpilla, as a kid, walk us through high school. What are you facing? I know we talked about some of the anxiety stuff you were facing even as a little kid, and just start walking us through that. Let's get into the business career, but introduce us to you, and so we could kind of take a snapshot into what you were like growing up.
So, I was the kid that didn't like to disappoint my parents. That wasn't an option. I could challenge authorities in school where, sometimes, my mom would have to wonder why she would get called into school. So it's interesting that I didn't like to disappoint at home, yet I was very maybe challenging at school. And what my challenges were typically always about is me kind of fighting for the underdog. If I saw somebody not being treated properly, I would want to insert myself. And if it was a teacher not doing that, unfortunately, with the gift of talk that I have, I would use that. And sometimes I probably didn't handle it, lack of maturity, as a 15-year-old handling it the way that I should. So, I would say that my anxiety was being developed as a child. I felt that. I mean, at the age of 5, I had my first upper and lower GI series medical testing done. So, there were, my stress went to my stomach. Well, we didn't know that at the time. And, it was also, at that point, the early 70s, what's Johnny going through? And he must have real stomach issues. I did, but I think a lot of it was brought on by the stress that I felt and kind of what I felt trapped inside. As a guy who was very expressive, wanted to connect to people, needed those close friendships. I was blessed to have so many of those, but I think I just always felt that perfectionism, which is a struggle, and unfortunately, it's a legacy issue in my family, where it took until my daughter Bella, who's now, as she calls herself, a recovering perfectionist, it really took to the third generation to realize that perfectionism isn't the goal. My mom is that way. My dad was that way. And I was super proud to be a perfectionist. And so it really wasn't until Bella was a little girl displaying her anxiety and that I started to realize by listening to her that she's wound a little too tight. And sadly, what she's thinking is exactly what I'm thinking. And so that must mean I'm wound too tight. So that's really where it was, Bella's a little girl when I realized I've got anxiety problems.
Was it known as anxiety back then? Do you know what I'm saying? Like when you're a couple years older than me, but I don't even remember the words anxiety when I was growing up. Like how was this being manifest or talked to you when you're in your teenage years and stuff? What were people saying to you, or how was it being, let's call it, diagnosed or talked about?
Talked about as depression. And what was interesting to me is I didn't feel depressed. I was not sad. I'm extremely outgoing. So when I was, told maybe I need depression medicine, it was like, but I'm not depressed. I didn't have any issue with a mental health stigma put on me. I didn't worry about that. My grandfather had nervous breakdowns, my mom's dad. And so, I saw him struggle with mental health, and I loved that man so much that I thought he was so brave. And when he was at his weakest moments is when I felt the closest to him. And I had the privilege of caring for him in his later years in some of those, depressed episodes where he'd be hospitalized. So it's not that I had a hang up like, oh, I'm rough and tough. I'm not, I'm not depressed. It wasn't that. It's just a word didn't describe me. And so when I was 28 and a life event happened that we'll talk about that really rocked me to my core, and I did need medicated, was when it started to kind of come clear that, interesting, when I'm on that medication, my stomach problem's not so bad. Maybe I'm carrying my stress in my stomach, in my shoulders. I feel it there, but then, the nervous stomach and the gut-brain connection that we talk about, Justin, so much today. You listen on medical podcasts, there's the gut microbiome that everyone's talking about and how that connects with our brain. And so really it was just kind of all improperly put on depression. And I started on depression medicine, really realizing that wasn't quite right. And it's been years, call it decades, of really finding that right balance, because anxiety does plague me.
Yeah, you said that when we were talking. You're like you still feel it. You'll still deal with it and feel it today. How do you address it now? Like, what are you doing to work through when you feel it coming on, or you feel that anxiety or that pressure building for you? What are you doing? What are some of the habits and patterns? Like, if someone else is feeling those things, what advice would you give to them to say, here's some things that I've learned over the years that help me to kind of keep the train on the tracks and move through this section of how I'm feeling?
So the first thing that I've learned to do, number one, I sought therapy, and got so close with my psychologist that she wrote the afterword to my book, and she and I have been doing public speaking together for the last 20 years, right? So wow. I became such a good customer to my psychologist that we became best friends, and she's been amazing to my wife and me over the years in so many ways, and we try to give that back to her. So number one is I did seek help, and that help and that treatment in cognitive behavioral therapies gave me the tools that I needed to start figuring out what to do with all these thoughts that I was having, because there were so many, and they're racing in my mind, in a busy workday, and these thoughts coming in that literally I was thinking, so what do I do with that thought? And because I'm an action-oriented guy, not only what do I do with that thought, but okay, now where did that thought come from? And so now I got to process that. I got to decide what to do with it, and when am I going to do that? And all those different things. And I started to learn a few different techniques. So one was the fact that not every thought that I had, I need to entertain. I literally do not owe anything to that thought. Wow. Not where's your origin? Where's that coming from? Why am I thinking this? Did someone else make me think this? Did somebody put this on me? Literally, a thought can come in and I could say, no. Not taking up any mind space. And Justin, that is so hard to do.
I want to just quickly comment because I want you to keep going. I feel like that there's such hyper awareness at that point. You're not letting your thought drive you. You're almost like you're like coming almost, as it were, 30,000 feet up saying, I see the thought and I'm not going to like get into that one. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just very hyper aware for you to be able to look at it that way. Just look at it as just simply like, I'm not going to engage with that thought.
Exactly. It's, the challenge is because once it comes in, it's like me telling you, Justin, you can't think about a pink elephant.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And so, the thought comes in. And so then it is a commitment and a dedication to say, no, not at all. I mean, that's ridiculous. Or certainly not now. Or I'll come back to it later. But I never did that. Everyone that came in, I was kind of like squirrel, right? And then, you start going down that thought path. And then somebody with anxiety, it builds and builds and builds. So step one was not entertaining every thought. Step two came in when I read the book, The Search for the 100 Happiest People. And this was an incredible book that was really life-changing for me. And they were out looking for the 100 happiest people all over the world. Researchers were doing that. And I thought, what a cool job that would be to go out and find the happiest people in the world. And they were looking cross, socioeconomic backgrounds. So rich people, poor people, healthy people, sick people, impoverished people in, third world countries, all over. I mean, there was the full gamut. And they found that in those 100 people, they had one thing in common. And the one thing that they had in common, Justin, totally changed my life. It was that you don't have to believe everything that you think. Don't believe everything that you think. And when I soaked that in, I was like, oh my gosh. Johnny, do you realize how much noise that you allow to take up energy and space in your mind that are just thoughts that you have? That's the definition of anxiety, right? Wow. And so what I had been doing all up until that point is entertaining thoughts because I thought them, then I believed them, and then, okay, anxiety, now it's your job to take it from here to wind me up, right? And so that was so powerful for me to realize that. And I can't tell you that even still today, I probably read that book, 10, 15 years ago. I can't say that I still don't do it today, where I have to I find myself anxious about something, and I ultimately go back to saying, wait a minute, what are the facts to support that what I'm thinking about is true?
Yep.
And when I can't find those facts, I'm like, oh, this is one of those things. I'm believing it because I thought it. And we all think so much of ourselves that you think something, we think we're a credible source. I've been an incredibly terrible source of information to myself over the years, right? So, when they say, believe in yourself, to me, I got to be careful. Now, of course, we know what the intent of believing in yourself is all about, but I have to be careful to believe myself while I'm trying to believe in myself because of some of the thoughts that I have that just take me down a bad path, and it's a waste of time and energy.
I was just at a youth, like a church youth group. I was speaking for a church youth group, and these are kids that were like 13 years old until about 18 years old, boys and girls. They had it was like a weekend getaway. And one of the things I had these kids do is they wrote down 3 what I would call you are statements. So it's like 3 negative self-talks you would say to yourself. So like, you are stupid. You are not good at math. You are fat. You are slow. That kind of. So just things we would say negatively. And as you're listening to this, just think to yourself, what are some things that, in your mind you might say, you are this, you're so dumb, or you're always late, that kind of thing. And then I said, I want you to now write 3 I am statements that combat, in essence, tell the truth about those 3 you are statements. So for example, you'd say something like, I am strong. I am capable. I am patient. You some words that we use to overcome these false statements. Here's what's so interesting.
Some of the kids, Justin, we're having a connection problem. You're freezing up on me, so I don't know if I'm freezing up on you.
I remember there's one kid specifically, probably the biggest kid there. He's for sure the tallest kid. He's 17 years old, so he's one of the older ones. He's tall. He's kind of built, kind of lean and built. And he said, trying to remember if he said, I am weak or I am scrawny. One of the two. Basically, like, I'm too skinny, I'm too scrawny. And I remember looking at him like, Bud, you're probably one of the taller, older, bigger kids here. But isn't that so interesting? That's where his head went, right? His head went more to a negative place. And then his I am statement was more positive. So here's the point. We sometimes will say things to ourselves, you are this, you are that. We wouldn't even say to someone else. We wouldn't even we wouldn't have them, believe that about themselves. But yet we would say it to ourselves. And one of the things that I think is so interesting is what you believe matters, is you give weight to your beliefs. And so for you to simply just say, I'm not going to believe that. I'm not going to believe that. I'm not going to believe that about myself, and start speaking some more like positive I am statements. So in other words, you're speaking some truth versus speaking these negative and sometimes repetitive, beat ourselves up kind of statements. Is that something you feel like has been helpful for you to say, you know what, Johnny, you are strong. You got the, I am strong. I am capable. Like, do you have any of those rhythms or patterns as far as how you talk to yourself?
Absolutely. So there's so many good ones there. And I love that. I'm a big fan of the I am statements. I've had sticky notes taped to my mirror in the bathroom when I'm in a particularly dark mindset. I've done that. I'm a big believer in this, and I do this every night, is when my head hits that pillow at night, I set my intentions for my night's rest. And I really have to get my mind to say, this is literally my routine. And it varies depending on the day. But I say, I'm going to have a restful sleep. I'm going to allow my mind to shut off and get into a truly restful thought. And any things that I need to think about, I'm going to save that for tomorrow's day. I'm going to wake up feeling refreshed with a clear mind, and I'm excited to start a new day. I'm going to be thankful when I wake up tomorrow morning. I'm not going to be tired and exhausted and feel I need more sleep. I'm just going to be thankful for another day, and I'm going to approach it with positivity and knowing that God's got me and I am ready for this new day. And I'll tell you what, Justin, when I don't do that, the way I wake up the next morning, it is different. It's absolutely different. And so a huge fan of doing that. And it's a discipline that you have to come to, like anything in life. And, I talk to my kids about it. Even I'll say to them, if we're talking, all my kids live in Chicago now, I should say our kids. And, Susan will hear me saying to them, hey, set your intentions before you go to sleep tonight. I believe in it that strongly.
Do you guys see what I'm saying? Like, here's a guy, dudes is like, look like he could be on like a GQ magazine. He looks like a freaking like a GQ model.
You should talk.
They have this beautiful life. He's incredibly fit. He's run one of the biggest companies. If you're running a $4 billion company, or one of the top executive management on a $4 billion company, you're running one of the biggest companies on the planet. And yet he's telling himself these I am statements. Like, it's like sometimes we run past the basics, man. We run past the basics of just saying, you know what, you got what it takes. Like, I'm strong. I can overcome this stuff. With that, I want to dive into some of the challenges, because, again, I think if someone saw you from afar, they might think, well, he's got it all figured out. But some of the challenges you've had, particularly in this case, with you and your wife being able to bring a family, to create a family and have children and just the whole thing. I mean, you have an unbelievably painful and miraculous and challenging story when it comes to this dream of yours to be a father,
So, thank you. It was, I think, years coming that I was going to write this book, and I wanted to write it to honor my wife. Truly the gift this woman is in my life, and what she has done for me in her efforts for us to have a family. What she's done for our kids, both here and those that have passed, is too much. It's too much. And so I wanted to honor Susan, and then I wanted to honor the people who are there for the journey, right? Our village was so supportive and kind, our family and closest friends, our faith community, literally wrapping their selves around us for years of hard years. And so it was for those who, offer that encouragement along the journey as well, to say to them how important their role is, because they really sustained us and kept us going. So, I'll go back to our younger years in our 20s. I mean, we were, a couple that, from outside appearance had it all. We were both strong in our careers. We got quick starts out of college. Susan's quicker than mine, making more money than me, right out of school. We met a month before graduation, our senior year. And, she ends up getting a job after me. Of course, I had my job lined up, in the fall of my senior year, and everything was set up. And then, I'm encouraging her and pushing her to start interviewing. And then she gets a job and making like 35% more than me, and company car and better benefits. And so I'm like, okay, I get this, how this is going to work. So, both of our careers off to a great start. And professionally, we appeared to be that young couple that were uninterested in children. And because we were too financially motivated and too much of one of those, young power career couples, when that could be nothing further than the truth. We got married at 24 and we're ready to start a family shortly after that. It's just after years of trying, it did not happen. And so, multiple years later, after many, many procedures and all of that, we were blessed with a pregnancy of triplets. And it was the greatest news that could have ever happened to us, because I always wanted to be a dad of multiples. And I could only dream as big as twins when I was a kid growing up. So I never thought we were going to have three. And it was just an amazing pregnancy. Of course, easy for me to say. I mean, my wife was deathly sick, lost 15 pounds that first trimester, gained 30 pounds that second trimester. I mean, so that we both had different experiences, of course, with that pregnancy, but mine was filled with hopes and dreams, and hers was hopes and dreams and physical stress on her body. But we ended up having 2 sons and a daughter, Nicholas, Mary, and Peter, and they all ended up passing away shortly after they were born. Mm. And our lives pretty much ended. It was a darkness that I never saw coming, a darkness that didn't seem to make sense. I remember the confusion that I felt. And, there was absolute beauty, Justin, in the time that they were alive, and the five of us as a family, holding each other, us holding our three babies, and just feeling so blessed that God gave us this. And, one of the chapters of my book is called Footprints in the Sand, that poem that you may have heard of, and it's really, God was carrying us. He was walking, and those were his footsteps in the sand carrying us, and he didn't forsake us, and he wasn't gone. And because we were the happiest people in that hospital. And even a few hours after they died, we still remained the happiest people. It was the five of us as a family that we've worked for years to get to this point. Then a nurse said something that really changed my life. She came in and asked what funeral parlor we were using. And, I just thought, boy, this is our life now. Like, this is where we came to. And so, the days after that were just confusing, and going through the funeral process and everything. And the years that followed remained challenging. And, it's certainly all outlined in my book of the struggles that came after. We thought that we hit the lowest point in our lives, and we really hadn't. And there was more things that happened from there that were just awful and difficult, and then joyous, and then difficult. And so it was truly a roller coaster from there. And what, as time went on, Justin, what I really needed to fight for in therapy, number one, my wife and I committed to each other, and this is important to say, that we are going to grieve together. We're not going to grieve separately. We are going to each have our own path, but we're going to commit to each other to keep coming back to each other daily in our grief, and not have resentment for each other 6 months later if I was having a good day and she was having a bad day and she brought me down, right? Those things were important to us, that we just stayed centered and together. And then we'd make pacts that going to the cemetery every day is too much. We can't do that. And so, no more going to the cemetery, right? Yeah, okay. And then on my way home from work, decided to stop at the cemetery, and then Susan was there, right? And say like, come on, we agreed not to do this. And she's like, yeah, I know. What are you doing here? And so, that's how grieving is different. And, we make these promises, and then, we just knew that we had to just keep coming back to each other. And so in that, we started seeing some amazing things were happening. Our life was getting more blessed and richer through our relationship. Our faith was growing stronger than ever. And that never wavered. It really didn't. One of the other chapters of my book is entitled, Why Not Us? Because we never sat in the why me moment. Everyone kept saying, I'm sure you're wondering why me. That genuinely wasn't a thought, because bad things happen to good people all over the place. We think we're good people. So this awful, tragic situation happened. Why not us? Should I hope it's always these other people and go through my life that way? It just didn't seem logical to me to do that. And then the quest came to, again, focus on the blessings, and through more hardships.
I'm curious, Johnny, when you said the why not us, was there like a kind of like, why not us? We're strong and we can make it through this? Or was there more of like a why not us? We're no different than anyone else. Like, what was the emotion behind that for you? When you said those words and had that realization and never said the why me, tell me the emotion behind saying that. What were you feeling when you said, why not us?
It was the latter point that you made, is we're not special. We're not exempt from this. So it wasn't, this happened to us when people would say, to try to make sense of it, God knows you can handle this. Okay. And I believe in God fully in his providence, over our lives. But the thought that he knew I could handle this, that's not the loving God that I feel that I pray to. So that didn't work for me. So our thought was never, why not us? Because we're strong and we have a good marriage and we were both raised in loving families, right? No. It was, we're not exempt in life from awful things happening. And basically, this is our cross to carry. This is our turn. And, in the years since, we've seen a lot of people have their turns, right? And so it just hit us that, in life, we're willing to take all the good. Susan and I are really good at that. And so it just became natural to us to say that we take the bad too. Right?
So powerful, yeah. Isn't that so interesting? When things are going well for us, we're willing to bathe in the sunshine and the success. When things aren't going well, we are pretty quick to blame. You know what I'm saying? We're pretty quick to say, why me and what's going on and this is wrong. And that emotional state and emotional maturity for you to say, all right, like we can make it through the challenge. We can accept the good and the bad. That is really profound.
I think, when we started therapy, I think we've started therapy, if you will, as sophomores, not freshmen, because we didn't need to spend that first round of time getting over the why us. Why me? Why'd this happen? Well, we get that. We get why it happened. Bad things happen. Watch the news, right? Look at the paper. Bad things are happening to innocent, good people all the time. So that just didn't seem like a good use of energy. And what's interesting, Justin, is that I know that I have so much energy to use every day, and so do you. And so what's really important to me is that I'm not chipping away your energy pool and bringing you down, right? I'm always keenly aware of that. So when I have an interaction with someone, when we had our time together, I wanted it to be a good use of your time.
Yes.
Right? And you genuinely wanted it to be a good use of my time. And so when I start thinking about that with our own feelings, that was when I was able to say, you know what, I don't need to put any energy into the why me. Now, I don't want to get out of bed in the morning and I'm questioning if I want to live or not. And how am I going to live as, this guy that's buried 3 children? So I got a lot of other stuff to focus on. And that's really where the direction went. And luckily, I think that's what happens when you marry your soulmate. You end up, she was right where I was at. And so then
I think the energy that you show up with, that you and your wife chose to show up with, you stayed connected, because oftentimes when tragedy like that hits, that can be the catalyst to pull us apart, right? It rips the relationship apart. And it feels like you guys made that conscious decision from an energy, like, I'm going to show up the best I can for you. You show up the best you can for me. When I'm down, you lift me up. When you're down, can I lift you up? Do you feel like that's part of what kept it not only together, but actually it's like the refiner's fire melded you guys even closer together. It's like you became even closer as a couple versus it ripping you apart.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, it's kind of the subtitle of my book, really talks about emerging through pain. And this is the key part, is learning to live with gratitude. So when you think of the stages of grieving, and the final stage is acceptance, and we have a lot of grief in our life. It could be financial grief. It could be professional grief, with a company, relationship grief, whatever it is. But when you get to acceptance, that's kind of the end of the process. And what I thought, Justin, was when I got to acceptance, like, that's not good enough. I don't want to just accept this. I want to feel good about this. I want to find blessings in this. I want to be grateful for what happened. I want to be grateful that I got to be Nicholas, Mary, and Peter's dad in this lifetime. And the idea, we all want more. We want more food. We want more money. We want more relationships, more sex, whatever that is. We want more, more, more. I had to get comfortable saying, you know what, Johnny, the time you had is all you're going to get. Man, be grateful for that. Because I had that life experience that can change me for the better or it can change me for the worse. And I'm not going to let it change me for the worse. So I'm not going to just accept that happened. I'm going to say, wait a minute. I'm a blessed man. Those 3 souls, I got to be their dad. And I'm not going to judge the significance of their life by the time that they were alive. And so every time I get to talk about them, you giving me this gift to this conversation right now, anytime I take a stage to talk to people, whether it's something to pump them up on a sales conference or whatever it might be, there is something in me that when I can honor them, there's gratitude. And so if you ask me, Johnny, if I had the power to take that experience away from you, would you want me to do that? I would tell you no. I wanted exactly how our life is playing out. Now, would I want them to live and raise them? Of course. That not being an option, the exact situation playing out as it did, would I want to change that? And my answer is no. Too many gifts have come from it, and I won't disgrace and dishonor them because it hurt.
Yeah, how many of us listening, we need to make that shift? We've been through those challenges in life, or maybe you're right in the middle of it right now, and you shift into this state of gratitude. Tony Robbins, I think, sums part of this up well. He says, the moment you change from expectation to appreciation, your life will change in an instant. So instead of expecting that, I'm going to have my kids for 80 years, you switch to appreciation for the moments you do have. And all of us today, those hugs you give your babies today, don't give them a quick little, all right, see you later. Give them a 15, 20-second hug. Tell them that mommy loves them. Tell them that daddy loves them. Like, look your spouse in the eye. I was trying to remind people, and Johnny, like all those breaths, like that breath, it's all a gift, man. All this stuff is a gift. And when you remind yourself, man, that last breath is a gift, this next one's a gift, it does kind of shift from, I expect to be able to breathe, whenever I breathe in, right, to like, I'm grateful for this moment, And by the way, just having this conversation, I'm grateful for this moment with you. You have such a gift to get vulnerable. And vulnerability is what connects us as humans. It's not all the accolades. It's the story of the struggle. Because we all say, man, you've been through that. Like, maybe I didn't go through exactly what you've been through, but man, I've been through some of my challenges too. And that's what starts connecting us at these deeper levels. Walk us through the next seasons, because this story is as deeply tragic as it was. I mean, to your point, wondering if you should continue living. It has a beautiful ending. You guys, so walk us through kind of the next steps in the next season of the story.
Really what I'll do is kind of jump to the end, if you will, and in the middle, because there's truly so much that would take so long. I'll tell you that, through other challenges that happened with other pregnancies after Nicholas, Mary, and Peter died, I made the decision, and with miscarriages that happened, we miscarried twins after Nicholas, Mary, and Peter died. That, that day coming home from the hospital, I told my wife, honey, we can't do this to your body anymore. No more drugs, no more injections, all these treatments. We can't do this anymore. And I literally cried the first injection I gave her 5 years earlier, right, to produce the eggs and all that stuff. I put the shot in and it made me cry. And she was like, what's going on? What happened? I said, no, this just doesn't feel right to me. And there's something intuitively wrong with this. And so, after the twin miscarriage, I said, we're going to adopt. And she said, I don't want to adopt. And I said, you just need to heal, and I'm going to go work on this. And if we have an opportunity for a baby, you can decide later, but you need complete rest. And so I went down the adoption path. And as I do as a driver and as a pusher, and my wife, as she is, as the kindest woman ever, who would literally allow me to disobey what she asked me when she said, I don't want to do that. But she knows I'm action oriented. This was completely insensitive as a man, for sure, right? I mean, my intent was so good, but I understood while doing it how insensitive it was. Almost, Justin, there was no energy that I could spend on mourning the miscarriage of twins, and we miscarried them about 4 weeks apart. So it happened 2 separate times.
Oh.
And so I thought, it takes years to adopt. So my wife's got plenty of time. Well, within 6 weeks, we were finding ourselves becoming parents. And I'll save part of the stories because it was international and it was complicated and we were in South America, all stuff for the book. But long story short, we end up with our son, Bo. We met him the day after he was born, and Bo changed our lives. He was really the answer to our prayer that changed from God, get Susan pregnant, to God just sent us the kids we're meant to raise. I don't care where they come from, who they come from. Just send us those kids. Wherever in the world that they are that are meant, that you want us to raise, send us those. And he did just that. And that's our son, Bo. Bo changed our lives from just darkness, just to incredible brightness. And we understood our path. And we understood that, Nicholas, Mary, and Peter were there to prepare us for Bo coming to us. And for us to be able to raise Bo with a different level of appreciation for being parents than maybe we would have had otherwise. I mean, we put all these thoughts to it, again, of positivity and gratitude and blessings. And so adoption was our path, and we were set on that. There's a whole nother podcast we can do about adoption and thoughts that people have about it. And so I'll save more of that dialogue. But, then through the process of trying to adopt again, that adoption failed. And after, going to pick up the baby and all those things. And, my wife was told she could, after surgery to repair damage in her uterus, just medically impossible to get pregnant. And if she can, there's no way for a baby to grow. She's got 20% of her uterus that's functioning. The baby would be deformed. Her life would be at risk. The placenta would push through and attach to other organs. It's just disaster. You can't do that. And we came home from that adoption failing and realized that my wife was pregnant and very pregnant. She was about 3 months pregnant. And then we had a whole new challenge, right, of now what do we do? And so after that, she was in bed for 5.5 months and delivered our daughter Bella about 5 weeks early. And, Bella's been a gift to us. She's 2 years younger than Bo. And when they delivered Bella, they said, we have to tie her tubes. She can never go through another pregnancy again. Her uterus is shot. And we just said, we're going to keep trusting in God. Because we never thought, you told us that she can't carry a baby, and here we are. So, in the operating room from a C-section saying you can't tie her tubes. And 10 months later, Susan surprises me with, she's pregnant, and that's our son, Stone. And so today, the three of them are 24, 26, and 28. And when I think back at that time in the delivery room with Stone, and they said, Johnny, seriously, this time, her tubes, it has to happen. And we loved our doctor so much, a perinatologist, a high-risk pregnancy doctor, and we just said, Prob, we're going to keep trusting. And if God has more in store for us, we're just open to that. And from there, I'll save that rest of that for the book because the ending's a little surprising. What happens, but we've been blessed to raise, 3 amazing kids that are so close to each other. They all went to the same college in North Carolina, and now they all live in Chicago. So kind of travel as a little pack. And they were born boy, girl, boy, just like our first 3 kids were born boy, girl, boy.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I want to encourage you to get the book Life is Hard, but I'll be okay. By the way, what a great, in essence, I am statement, right? I'll be okay. I'll get through this. And again, whether you can relate specifically through your own challenges with bringing children to the earth or other challenges that you've been through, we all know that life is hard, but it's nice to have people that say, hey, listen, it's going to be okay. Let me share with you both the challenges I've been through, but more importantly, let me share with you the lessons that I've learned to encourage you, right? To equip you to go through the challenges that you'll go through. And so, it's so funny. In this podcast, I had some big ambitions of all the stuff we were going to cover, which, by the way, it was perfect. It was perfect. It was just exactly what it was supposed to be. But we didn't even talk about your career, running a $4 billion business and the rise and we have so much more to cover. And again, it was perfect how it was. But this is such an interesting person. This is one of those guys. When we talked, I was like, "You're an interesting guy. We need to continue this conversation." So we'll definitely, Johnny, we need to do this again, brother. We need to circle back and we'll go for round 2. And I feel like we've just barely scratched the surface. But I want to encourage you guys to follow, to connect with Johnny. Those of you that are looking for a keynote speaker with massive amounts of real life credibility from a business perspective, but also just this incredible gift of empathy and a real human heart, you're definitely going to want to reach out to him and connect there. And then we need to get his book, Life is Hard, but I'll be okay. But Johnny, I just want you to know how much I appreciate you, man, how much I respect you. And even you talking about, I think a lot of times we talk about I used to have this challenge. You're kind of like, no, I still face some of the anxiety stuff. I'm still working through it. Or you're still so raw and so real even today, even right now. So just appreciate you, man. I really respect you. I think it's a real gift that you have. I hope men specifically, but all of us, hear this and say, I want to be more like that guy. I want to kind of open up more. I think a lot of us, we suffer in silence. We just think that we're the only ones and we're fine. I'm fine, or I don't want to be a burden on everybody. But it's important to know that there's people that not only can, but are wanting and able to encourage you and to uplift you and to support you and to be a listening ear and to be a shoulder to cry on. And that's healthy and that's good, to have people like that in your life. So I just appreciate you setting that example, as someone that's willing to just say, I'm going through it too, just like everybody else. Life is hard, but I'll be okay. We'll get through this thing. So, man, what an honor to be on with you, brother. Thank you for taking the time and for just pouring it out like that.
Hey, I appreciate you so much, Justin. This was great as always to talk to you. And I know there's going to be a lot more opportunities for us. And so I just appreciate what you're putting out there and the leadership example that you give as a father, as a husband, as an executive. And you certainly captured my attention. And I'm a huge fan of yours. So this to me was just such an honor to be here. So thank you so much.
All right, guys, we will see you in the next one. Make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you share this with people to remind them life is hard, but they'll be okay and they can get through it. Thanks so much, guys. See you on the next episode.